Guys, welcome to TFL Talking Trucks podcast. This is episode 280.
And in this episode, we're going to be talking about trucks.
Exactly. And most importantly, actually, more specifically, we're talking about the future of electric trucks because it doesn't seem super bright quite yet. Because the big news that just came out, a day ago or so, is that the Ram 1500 ramcharger, which is a plug-in hybrid, actually series hybrid, basically range extended hybrid, is being delayed again.
Yeah, everything is a little bit up in the air. And like you said, that ramcharger is a potentially really cool combination of having electric drive, but with a gas engine to supply power for the electric portion of the powertrain, which would be a really cool combo. And it's definitely something that we're excited to test. But it is going to be pushed off until first quarter of 2026, they're saying right now?
Yeah, so there's a little bit of flux in there, right? Because initially, last fall in 2024, Ram came out and said, you know that electric truck with no range extender, that was coming first, and then the range extended truck was coming later. Let's flip that. So they accelerated the ramcharger unveiling and production.
Which makes sense because I'm sure they saw that there was going to be a lot more interest in a truck that you can still refuel very quickly and continue to drive with. That's something that we've seen a lot of interest with the Scout trucks. That's a big part of the reason that people are willing to go for one of those is because it's got the option of that range extender.
Yeah, and the Scout calls it the Harvester, that range extended.
Which is a pretty cool name.
Yeah, very cool name. I mean, heritage of the Scout brand. Right?
Yeah, and of the Harvester name.
Yes.
But also the fact that, I get it, you're harvesting power if you think
You're
about it.
burning a little bit of oil to harness some power. Yeah. That's really cool. But getting back to the Scout, that data that about 81% of reservations were going for the Harvester option, which was the range extended option. So it makes total sense that Ram would say, hey, there is a little bit of energy here, so to say. So let's accelerate the ramcharger truck. But now the latest word is that it's not coming until first quarter-ish of 2026. So that's like a few months later than what they originally said.
Yeah, so it's interesting. It's something. What's your impression of why that's happening? Do you think it's more development, or do you think it's potentially due to waning interest?
Before I talk about my impression of this, can I read you the statement that Stellantis sent me?
Sure, yeah, because you actually reached out, did your due diligence.
That's what journalism is about, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, we have to get all sides of the story. We can't just say, okay, this is my opinion or your opinion. So this news came out of Crane's report. This is Crane's Detroit outlet. So originally published this news about a slight delay. So I reached out to Ram and Stellantis, and they sent me this statement. This is the quote. Stellantis continues to reassess its production strategy in North America to align it with our competitive advantage with the range extended Ram. And in light, are you falling asleep?
I'm trying not to.
And in light of slowing consumer demand for half-ton BEV, battery electric vehicle pickups, our plan ensures we're offering customers a range of trucks with flexible powertrain options that best meet their needs. We also are extending the quality validation period for the range extended Ram to support a successful launch and the highest build quality for the segment exclusive range extended electric vehicle.
Whew.
Okay, well,
That's a lot.
That's a big statement.
Yeah, that's a lot to read.
But I'm hearing a couple things here, and this is my impression of this news. First of all, quality. Brand new tech, which has some complications, right? Because you're combining two powertrains in the same vehicle, really. Because you're not pushing the vehicle with the gasoline engine, but that gasoline engine is driving a generator. And there's some complexity because that engine has to stay cool. You have to fuel it. You have to have a fuel tank for that engine. You have to have batteries, electric motors. Plus making the entire vehicle work on top of that.
Yeah, it's a complicated thing. Anytime you're debuting new technology, getting all of that to go off without a hitch in machines that are as complicated as these are and as broad as the production is, they're making so many units, getting everything to not have any slight glitch is pretty difficult to do. We saw that like when we got the Hummer EV. We were very early in getting the Hummer EV, and that's a truck that it seemed like they wanted to get to market sooner rather
Very
than
fast,
later.
yes.
And so our Hummer EV had some glitches that have since seemed to have been worked out in that vehicle and don't exist anymore. But it was one of those where, because it was kind of an accelerated timeline, we saw a few little glitches and hitches here and there.
Yeah, it had to be rebooted a couple times.
Yeah,
which is
for
what
sure.
computers do, right? They reboot. No, but like that makes sense. And that's not to say that when it launches in Q1, it's going to be perfect, 100% perfect, because
there's no guarantees in anything.
almost no vehicles are that, right? There could be, a little issue here and there. I'm not saying there will be, but there's a possibility of that. But I'm reading a little bit more into this because just looking at the world in general, and we're going to talk about, I went to about 4 dealerships just a few days ago, and I wanted to reassess with my own eyes and kind of reading the news stories. Are the new truck prices still continue to go up? Are they going down? What's going on with used pickup truck sales? So I just published this video very recently, this week at TFL Truck YouTube channel, where I saw Toyotas, I saw basically every brand, except I did not see Nissan Frontiers.
Interesting.
But I saw every other brand, GM, Chevy, GMC, I saw Jeep, Ram, Ford, so all those brands.
Why didn't you see any Frontiers?
Because I didn't have time to go to Nissan.
Okay, so it's not because Frontiers are necessarily in a different situation.
No, I'm sorry. Yeah, I didn't want to single out Nissan Frontier. I just didn't have time to go to a Nissan dealership.
Right, fair enough. You went to a lot of dealers.
Yeah, I went to a lot of dealerships.
And I think we got a good gist of what's going on as well.
Exactly. And we'll talk a little bit more about this in a few minutes. But what I'm getting at is that I saw a big glut of new vehicles, a lot of huge inventories of new vehicles. And I think it's partially because a lot of them were just shipped. And it may have to do something with tariffs because a lot of these vehicles have components or are assembled in other countries, right? For example, Tacoma is assembled in Mexico, right? A lot of engines, like Ford's diesel engines, Ram trucks, Ram heavy duties are assembled in Mexico as well. So this has to do with building a new vehicle, right? So ramcharger probably has components from around the world, right? Canada, United States, Mexico, Europe.
So are you thinking that in some of these early stages, they're potentially trying to move production more to the U.S.?
Yeah, or maybe control cost.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, there's something probably happening behind the scenes. That's what I'm guessing. After being in this industry for almost 13 years.
Still, speculation, but
speculation.
But educated.
This is my opinion. Is that there's a lot happening behind the scenes. There's also battery technology is still being developed and perfected, and it's quite expensive, right, to actually have batteries in vehicles. But we're going to talk about the new chemistry, LMR, that's coming online in a couple of years. So I think Ram and Stellantis are looking at all these factors. There's a little bit of unpredictability with cost. There is, where do we assemble it? They want to assemble the ramcharger in Michigan, which is amazing. That's great, right? That's what we support. But there's still a lot of unknowns. And I think that's probably driving some of this delay.
It's interesting, too, that they're acknowledging the, as they put it, slowing consumer demand for battery electric pickups.
Which is kind of true.
Yeah, it's definitely true. And ever since the beginning, I would say that interest in electric pickup trucks especially has been more limited than maybe interest in electric vehicles, looking at the market as a whole. Understandably so, because if you're pulling a trailer, like we've talked about many, many times, it's much less convenient to do that with an electric vehicle, stopping and charging. But it is interesting that they're talking about that here because specifically with the range extended Ram that still has a gas generator to use fuel to give you
which should alleviate that problem, right?
Yeah. So you would think that would be one where potentially, if any electrified powertrain would have the most interest if the Scout pre-orders are anything to go on.
Yeah, and also there seems to be a convergence of some sort because Scout is not going to be here until 2027 either, right? Yeah. And a lot of the information that we're hearing, for example, Slate Auto, we had an episode about this in a couple of weeks ago. Slate Auto is an affordable, well, it's a startup company with an affordable little pickup truck that they want to deliver. It's all electric. It's also not coming until later in 2026, maybe early 2027. So there seems to be convergence of a lot of these companies trying to deliver that, and all those timelines are like converging on 2027.
Yeah, which is going to make it an interesting year for us. We're going to have a lot to do.
Yeah, so we need to prepare. The storm is coming.
Oh, we've got a couple of years to get ready.
But there's also, for example, I just looked at this data yesterday. For first quarter of 2025, Ford sold about 7% fewer Lightnings than the previous year, first quarter of 2024. So there is that slowing interest in those pickup trucks.
But again, something like the Ramcharger has potential to outsell a traditional battery electric only vehicle like the Lightning because of that range extender.
And also, the longer they wait, the more competition they will face.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. So it sounds from the statement from Stellantis that they're putting it on the back burner a little bit, but I wonder if that's a good strategy.
Yeah, well, maybe Q1 of next year, they might still be first.
Yeah.
Right? Because Scout won't be around yet. So maybe it's still okay. So hopefully this will work out.
That's true. Yeah. First quarter of 2026 sounds kind of far away, but that's going to come up fast.
Well, we're almost to Memorial Day. End of May, almost.
Exactly.
All right. So let's talk about Slate a little bit more. So Slate just put out a statement just a couple days ago that they just crossed the threshold of 100,000 reservations. And actually, here at TFL, we're holding 2 of them.
Or 3?
Or 3.
Because someone, the company put in a reservation for one. You put in a reservation for one personally.
Yes.
And actually, did Zach? Who else?
I'm guilty. I did too.
Oh, you did too? Mm-hmm. You're 2/3 of the Slate reservations for the whole company. What are you going to do with 2 of them, Andre? Are you going to chop them together, make a 4-wheel drive?
Well, I was thinking about my lady, my wife. She can drive a Slate.
You'll be a Slate family.
I can drive a Slate.
Get one for the kid, get one for the dog.
Well, if they're $20K, I mean, it's like candy, really.
Yeah, everyone can have one.
Actually, we should discuss this. So 100,000 reservations. First of all, that's a cool milestone.
It is, yeah.
But it may or may not mean a lot, right?
Yeah, which is fair because there were a lot more reservations for the Cybertruck than there were actual orders. So the one didn't necessarily translate into the other. The other thing with the Slate reservation is it's what, $50?
$50, not 100.
Yeah,
it's
so
not 200.
It's a very small commitment.
Yeah, so it is still a commitment, right? So $50 reservation. But like we discussed last time, that's like if you and your partner go out to dinner or lunch, it could be $50.
Exactly.
So it's not a huge commitment. But it may not translate into sales, but there could be other issues with Slate, right? It is a small, it's a good thing that it's small, I think, because for city...
The vehicle or
the vehicle?
Company, okay.
Well, the company is also kind of small, but they're just a startup.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that. We're showing some images
of
different Slate.
It's got cardboard boxes in it. Dang.
And it's got off-roady tires. But there's a couple of things that worry me. Oh, there's a slammed one as well.
Nice.
There's a couple of things that worry me about Slate. First of all, it's 2-wheel drive only.
Yeah, which is fair.
Could be an issue.
I'm still hoping that at some point they're going to get an option for a second electric motor to make it 4-wheel drive because so many of these, you can even from the factory get a lift for it. Get a decently aggressive knobby tire. You can have a full-size spare on the back of it.
You can remove the roof.
Yeah, you can remove the roof. So you can make it a little bit like an old-school Jeep or Bronco, lifted with a full-size spare on the rear. So why not do a four-wheel drive version at some point. That would be a big deal.
Okay, but that would cost extra, I'm imagining.
Oh, sure
right?
would, yeah.
So it won't start at like 27,000 before rebates. It could be 30 or 35. The price could creep up.
Which
I
I'd be
could
okay
walk
with.
away.
If it's a couple grand, yeah. But if your starting price is still low and you can make one that's a couple grand more expensive that has four-wheel drive, for us here in Colorado, that's enough of a benefit having four-wheel drive that I think a lot of people would go for it.
Exactly. And all-wheel drive, I mean...
Because it's my biggest issue with this, is rear-wheel drive.
Yeah, well, there's also, we could put sandbags in the back. We can get traction.
Yeah, but then you might be that embarrassing guy on I-70 that's going sideways up the hill and being followed by a convoy of emergency vehicles just waiting for you to be facing the wrong way on a major interstate.
I would say.
Yeah.
I-70 things.
That's not a good look.
No. But if you have KO3s, I mean, come on. I mean, how bad could it be?
It could still be pretty bad.
All right. Then there's another thing. It's a two-door only vehicle.
Yeah,
which can be converted from two-passenger truck to a five-passenger SUV.
Which, look, I've got my two... Maybe the two vehicles I drive the most are both two doors.
All right, tell me about this.
Yeah, my Ram Cummins is a two-door, long bed, single cab truck.
Okay.
Yeah, and I've got a little daily driver.
You got the runabout, right?
A runabout car that's two-door.
Yeah.
So I actually love two doors.
Okay.
So that doesn't bug me at all on this. So Roman, for example, Roman thinks that this being a two-door is going to kill it in the crib. It's going nowhere because it's a two-door.
I'm always optimistic. I'm always trying to be positive.
For sure.
But just look at the history of two-door vehicles. If you look at Wranglers, right, they used to be only two-door.
Yeah.
Now, 80 to 90% of new Wranglers sold are four-door Wranglers. Same thing with the Bronco. They're offering a two-door, but it's now an afterthought. When you go to the dealership like I just did at Ford, I saw 24 Broncos on the lot, and they were all four-door.
Yeah, and every pickup truck that you buy is a full limousine of four-door luxury for passengers,
which is very expensive,
with a 4.5-foot bed behind it.
Okay, it's not that bad sometimes.
Basically, everyone has become super boring, and I think that a little two-door spice in the life, what's the big deal? You tilt the seat forward, someone crawls in the back, because the base Slate is a two-door single-cab truck, but you can turn it into a five-seater.
Yeah.
If you have that many friends, which, I mean, who does, right? I don't.
Well, I mean, this could be a great first car. Let's say you're just going to college. You want to bring your buddies, your friends with you, whatever. You could pile, 8 people in there if you wanted to.
Exactly. In some states, they could just ride in the bed.
But we don't condone riding in vehicles with no seat belts. I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, fair enough. Tommy and I did ride in the back of that Subaru Brat for a video. If that counts.
Didn't you have seat belts, or they were unuseful?
It had a whole harness, but they had been sitting in the sun for so long.
They weren't useful.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you could have taken it and torn it by hand.
No, but there's this. Look at the Ford Maverick. How many doors does the Maverick have?
Too many.
Okay, 4. Okay. How many doors does the Hyundai Santa Cruz have?
Also too many.
Okay.
But yeah, I get it. I get why people get four-door vehicles. I'm just joking around for the most part. So it could be a big drawback with this, but I love this concept of a simple, highly modular, configurable vehicle that has an affordable starting price. And the two-door thing, to me, makes it even cooler.
Okay.
But I'm wildly impractical.
Granted. And it also has a frunk, by the way. We didn't mention this yet.
You could put someone up there.
No, that's not what I meant. I meant you could put some luggage in there, okay?
Right.
7 cubic feet of that.
No, that's pretty good.
No, but what about price creep, right? And I don't want to, say Slate is similar to Tesla in any way, because it's not. It's a different company. But Tesla announced the Cybertruck starting price at $39,900 and something dollars.
Didn't
when
really
it first
happen.
came out, and actually TFL purchased one, the company purchased one. We got the $80,000 one with a $20,000 foundation series,
Yeah.
which gave you full self-driving technologies with supervision. So that was $100,000. So that promise, the initial promise, never came, and that's kind of how startups kind of have to operate because they have to make money in order to make themselves viable, right? That's a really hard thing.
It is, and it's not unusual at all. I'm holding my fingers crossed that the fact that Slate is they're trying to do a couple things with this vehicle, but they're really pinning this entire brand and the entire idea of this on it being affordable.
Yeah.
So if they can't maintain that, then all you have is a slow two-door plastic body paneled vehicle with no paint. So for this to work, it has to stay relatively affordable. And I know there's already been a bit of an increase from 25 to 27.
Yeah.
So I get it. I think to some degree a little bit of that is inevitable in this day and age, but I'm hoping that they can still keep it at least under $30,000, and then, I mean, we'll see what happened to some of the incentives, but it would be great if they could keep this affordable because that's the whole point.
That's the core of the brand.
I'm cautiously optimistic.
Okay. No, and I'm with you. I would like to be optimistic as well because I love the design. It looks amazing. It's customizable, but a lot of these customizations will cost money too.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'm very interested to see how much it's going to cost selecting all the different options that they have on their website. It's a ton of fun to go on their website, configure one, build it out how you would. I went through and selected a bunch of options and built one that I thought was really cool. It would be cooler if it was four-wheel drive. But depending on how expensive those options are going to be, you might rack up a lot of money in options.
But the good thing is that Slate was saying that you could buy the standard, they call it blank Slate.
Yeah, and do it later.
And do it later, over the months or whatever time you have. You could do those updates later as you move on, which is really a good idea as well. I wanted to, maybe rearrange this a little bit.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about the battery tech that's coming. So GM and LG Energy Solutions, they had an announcement that they're getting very close to this kind of next generation of the battery chemistry. And the biggest news here is that it's going to be way, way cheaper.
Yeah, so on the subject of affordability of new vehicles in general, but especially electric vehicles, because that's one of a lot of folks' big gripes with EVs, is that many of them are very expensive. You look at the Silverado EV work truck.
Well, now, the LT starts at like $75,000. I think the work truck, it's not on their configurator this minute.
Right.
So, but we're still talking about like $70,000 range.
Yeah.
For a lot of their Silverados.
One of the ones that we had by the office to test, if I remember right, was around that price-wise, and it didn't have a wireless phone charger, didn't have a couple of the features that you would expect in a vehicle even in the $40,000 or $50,000 range.
Let alone approaching $80,000.
So it was pricey. Right? So if they can figure out a new style of battery chemistry that brings that cost down, that would be a really big deal.
So this is called LMR, and it stands for lithium manganese rich. But it's not rich, it's actually less expensive.
Yeah.
But the rich part is that manganese is actually more common. It's more easily available. So as such, because they're using a lot of more manganese in the chemistry of the battery, they're saying up to 60 to 70% of the battery will be manganese. That it could save a lot of money building those battery cells. We're talking about for the truck like a Silverado EV or a Sierra EV, I saw, and this is not coming from GM, but I saw some other reports saying up to $6,000 less than what it is now.
For a battery pack in a vehicle like the size of a Silverado EV?
Yeah, the size of that.
So yeah, you would maybe be half that amount of savings in some other EVs because that's an over 200 kilowatt hour battery. It's absolutely massive.
Yeah.
Whereas a 100 kilowatt hour battery is a big battery.
Yeah, and but they were actually targeting this chemistry specifically at the big trucks.
Right.
Because they know they're a little bit more expensive, or a lot more expensive now than
Yeah.
standard ICE vehicles. Excuse me. So that's the big thing. That's the big driving factor here, is to reduce that price and reduce that cost. But they said you're not losing range, you're not losing performance. So this battery chemistry is actually should deliver even the same range, if not greater, driving range. Right now, the longest range Silverado EV, I think, is rated at 492 miles
Yeah.
of driving range, which is already a lot.
Already a lot, and it's a vehicle that we've tested even hooked up to a trailer, which was a pretty high profile, not a super heavy trailer, but a pretty high profile box trailer, and did over 200 miles of range on a single charge, pulling that trailer at highway speeds.
Yeah, which is a
So,
good result.
a battery that size makes for an EV that can actually tow a decent distance. You still have the unfortunate aspect of it both taking a while to charge and most chargers not being set up for you to pull a trailer into, like we've talked about many, many times. But there are still, because of the size of those batteries, things that these trucks can do really well, range being one of them.
But there's a catch. It's coming in 2028.
So, yeah, that's a ways out.
Do you see what I'm saying? Everything is converging on 2027 or 2028 as far as like this electric technology is
Good things take
concerned.
time.
Yeah. So, but this is goodness also, maybe even for companies like Slate or others, right? Because if this technology, the more you make of something, the cheaper it becomes, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Because as soon as you get it, into the production, they're also thinking about making this assembled in the United States. So they're very conscious of everything that's going on. So that's also great news.
Yeah.
United States built batteries using cheaper materials, more easily available materials. That's really good news, but I can't believe we still have to wait another 2 years or something.
Yeah.
I mean, why?
Yeah, it seems like all this stuff that we're talking about is a ways out, but there is something that we can talk about going on right now, something that you mentioned a little bit, and it's what's going on at a lot of the dealerships that we've been to and seeing all this new truck inventory that's sitting there, at least at present, appearing to be unsold.
Yeah, and also, so I would say this is good news for consumers like all of us. If you're interested in buying, maybe you have your truck is breaking down, you need something newer, you should probably consider a brand new vehicle, at least right now, because like I was saying, I went to almost every brand of truck and focused, on the volume sellers, the most popular vehicles. Like the Tacoma is the most popular midsize truck. The Tundra is becoming really popular as well. And it's good news because there's a lot of them sitting, waiting. What does it mean? It means the dealer wants to sell them. So you can have, first of all, color choices are available, option choices are available. There are hybrids, there are non-hybrids as far as Tundras and Tacomas. So you could wheel and deal and probably get yourself a deal.
Yeah, and you've seen actually some really good deals. There was something that I was watching you consider at one point a little while back. There was a brand new, nicely equipped Ram 1500 with, a high output Hurricane?
No,
Six,
just a standard output. Just a standard output, but standard output Hurricane is 420 horsepower nonetheless.
Yeah, so it was a nice truck. Not the most spec'd out truck that you could get, but nicely optioned. And there was $12,000 off.
Yeah.
Which is pretty huge.
It piqued my interest. I actually did a video about this truck.
Yeah.
Cole, if you could also open a new tab and go to TFL Now, which is a kind of our news channel. I did a... Excuse me. I've had something in my throat for the last few weeks as far as...
It's not good for a podcast, huh?
No, and I'm hoping that... I haven't got you sick yet, but I'm hoping I won't get you sick.
I'm hoping that too. Yeah. But this was a really cool truck, one that Andre seemed like he was genuinely considering going and getting.
I almost pulled the trigger until the crazy good deal went away for a minute. So what was happening, it was an April-only deal.
Okay.
And when we crossed into May, that particular deal of like $12,500 off this Crew Cab Ram 1500 2025 Tradesman Sport Package, which is red and black. So it had no
Yeah,
chrome.
it looks good.
It looked pretty good.
Ooh, single cab Cummins.
Whoa, that's a chassis cab
Oh,
over there. Look at
chassis
that
cab.
chassis. Ooh.
This is going to be great for all the people that are listening and not watching the video.
It's okay. We like good-looking chassis, right?
Oh, yeah, we sure do.
But this truck was like listed at like 43,000.
Yeah.
After all the discounts.
It was a lot off, which is cool. And so what we're talking about is that there's potentially some of that going around. Not just this Ram, not just that April deal at this particular dealership, but in general, because there's new inventory sitting around, potentially some deals to be had.
Exactly.
Which is great to balance out the high cost of a lot of new trucks, at least at their sticker price.
Exactly, because some of those sticker prices you see on the window sticker are shocking.
Yeah.
You know, when you come up to
Many.
a truck, which is like a work truck, and you see 55 grand, you're like, whoa, what's happening here?
Well, we've got a truck showing up very soon that I don't know if you want to mention yet.
Yeah, actually, yeah, we could.
Yeah.
We
So
could.
there's an F250, right?
So
Not a 350.
it's a brand new one, 2025 F250.
So it's a single cab,
Yes,
long bed, of course.
yes.
Cloth seats?
4x4 off-road.
Yeah, and
package.
diesel.
And diesel.
But cloth seats, single cab. You said XL, XLT?
It's an XL off-road, which is,
XL off-road.
remember we saw it in Michigan a couple of years back.
For sure.
Where they introduced
Is it-
this off-road package.
Selectable rear locker, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so selectable.
Duratrax.
Yeah.
It's riding on Duratrax.
Comes from the factory with a knobbier tire. Also a little bit of underbody protection. Is the one that we're getting also an FX4?
No, because I think it's labeled off-road. It's a different branding.
Can you do an XL off-road and then add an FX4 package to it to get like the shocks and...
I think they're about the same.
But either way,
Anyways.
it's a really cool spec of truck. It's
It's
bright.
also red.
Yeah, it's bright red. It's got the diesel. It's got the winch. It's got the rear locker. It's
Factory
got
installed winch.
knobby tires. So all super cool. I'm excited about the truck.
Yes.
But again, single cab, cloth seats. So you would
Gooseneck
expect
hitch package.
also really cool.
Yes.
So this is a truck that can work hard. Also do some rugged roads and some trails. We're going to do some trails in it.
Off-road work.
But again, this is a very simple truck.
I know where you're going.
Yeah.
74,000.
It's $74,000 for a single cab truck with cloth seats. Again, a lot of really cool options on it, and those options are where a lot of that cost comes from. It's like $25,000 worth of options. Half of that is just the diesel. The winch is also pretty expensive, as is, well, I don't know. How much is that gooseneck package?
It's at least like $1,500. We're gonna do a full video on this.
Yeah,
and
it's
actually,
gonna
we
be coming
might
down the
actually
road.
do a live show potentially next week with this truck. So if you're sticking around to TFL Talk channel,
Yeah.
we're gonna kind of tell you when that live show is coming.
But that is definitely some sticker shock right there. 75 grand for a single cab truck with cloth seats. I've got nothing against cloth seats or single cabs. That's exactly how my old truck is configured. But for 75 grand, whew,
Yeah. So, but what if that truck was sitting on the lot for 30, 40 days? The dealer would be incentivized, to try to move this truck, so they'll have some rebates. There might be also currently Ford is doing employee pricing on basically most of their inventory, not everything. Like specialty vehicles like Raptors are not; they don't have employee pricing on that, but a lot of manufacturers are doing those rebates, and this is what we're talking about here. So that truck, the sticker shock is there, but all of a sudden, if it's like $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 off,
it would help.
the shock lessens. But I also want to bring this up because I did this video. We're talking about the what's happening in dealerships video, and there was a couple of comments saying, "Is this tariffs or is this corporate greed? What is happening? Why?" Is it complexity? Like, why are these prices so high that prevent people from buying a lot of these new trucks? And I also want to point out that I think a lot of it is also inflation. So the actual just dollar inflation. Because if you take that number, let's say $75,000, and if you say take it 10 years back,
Yeah.
there's like inflation calculators, right? You could pull up, I don't know, Cole, can you... Would you mind pulling up an inflation calculator?
Yeah, and to your point, this is something that we've done in the past. There's a lot of vehicles that you look at the price of, you think, wow, that seems pricey. What did this same vehicle cost in 2000 or 1990?
Or 20 years ago?
Yeah. And surprisingly, to me at least, there are a lot of vehicles that aren't now that much more expensive than they used to be, calculating for inflation. We're not economists.
No,
we're not going to get into a whole conversation about have wages kept up with inflation.
No, they have not. That's the problem.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
But as far as the vehicles themselves, yeah, a lot of the prices sound crazy. Again, $75,000 for a very simple, low trim level truck seems
pretty crazy,
over the top.
Yeah.
And I think there is a little bit of that. I wouldn't be surprised if that's
all right. So Cole, if you just punch in 75 and make it round, 75,000, then select 2025 and over here, and let's take it into the past. Let's say how far do you want to go? Let's go 10 years to start.
2015.
2015. Let's see how much money is that? 55,000.
Yeah, which would
just in inflation.
Yeah.
So that's a $20,000 difference.
Yeah, and I mean, in 2015, 55 grand for a single cab truck still would have been a lot.
Okay,
so it's a combination.
Let's take it back. Take it back. Let's go 2005. How about that? Let's go another 10 years.
45.
We lost another 10 grand. So
let's do 1994.
That's the year of your truck.
Yeah, that's the year of my truck, and my truck would have been around 30 grand. So
that's listing at 34,000 now.
Yeah, it's not
a lot of
necessarily
this
that far off.
And like you said, we're not economists. We can't. I can't go into detail to explain inflation.
Yeah, we're going to talk about what we know, which is vehicles. Yeah.
So I can't explain that. But I do know if you bought a truck, any truck, let's say you bought a 2-door 4x4 work vehicle, and if you wanted to take it to a shop, like a 4x4 shop, and if you wanted to give it a lift, tires, a winch, maybe a bed rack, those numbers can add up also very, very fast.
Yeah,
you know
absolutely.
What I'm saying? So no, it's not, and there's nothing cheap around about it, right?
No.
Because you're also paying for labor, for skilled labor, for somebody to install a lift kit or whatnot.
Basically, what I think we've found out is that buying vehicles and owning vehicles is a racket. There's just no way to win.
But we love it.
So that's our best consumer advice: is buy a bicycle.
We're all guilty of owning many vehicles, a lot of which are old.
It's such a bad hobby.
It's not.
I
really,
love it, but it's
not a money-winning proposition.
No, it's not a winning proposition. That's not to say that you can't be into vehicles and do well with it, because like our buddy Brendan, he flips vehicles. He does great. He actually makes money on owning cool enthusiast cars. That's the exception. That's not the rule.
Yeah, exactly. And for most of us, it's a passion, right? And speaking of passion, can we show what I did to my truck?
Yeah, that's true. You've done a little bit of modification, as it were.
Just a little tasteful. So I finally broke down and I bought some bigger tires for my truck.
So your Tundra now has around about a 34-inch tire, which is a big deal because the way that the truck was before, you had a stock size tire.
Which is a 32-inch.
Yeah, which is a 32, and also just not a very aggressive tire.
Yeah.
So it didn't look particularly, particularly
manly.
Beefy.
Yeah.
But the truck's got the hood scoop. It's got the snorkel on it. So,
dude, it's got 2 fake hood scoops.
2 fake hood scoops, which is too many.
Yes, but now it has beefy tires.
Yeah, the beefy tires make a huge difference.
Yeah, before it just really looked like a bodybuilder who forgot, leg day.
Right.
But now it looks like a bodybuilder that didn't quite forget leg day.
That's getting into leg days.
He's getting into leg days.
But it's hard to get your calves to get bigger, so.
Exactly.
So, but still, no, it looks good, man.
Yeah.
I like it.
So I will do a video about this because I've owned this truck since October, so this is almost, 6 to 7 months.
This is a KO3?
Yeah, I got a KO3. So I got to give also a shout out to our buddy Jeff from Elevated Tire Service, Basically, it's a mobile tire service.
Yeah.
They can come out to your location, to your home, to your business, whatever location.
Was it raining like that when they came out and installed them?
Yes. So they worked in the
they
rain.
work hard.
They
Yeah,
worked in
they
the
really do.
rain. And this is not a sponsored thing.
No.
Elevated Service
just helped
didn't
us
pay
out.
me. Also, BF Goodrich didn't pay me
Yeah.
to say this. I paid full price. But the reason why I bring up Elevated Service is because I did some research. I found out the biggest tire I could put in this truck without doing a lift.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to touch the suspension. I mean, the suspension is already Fox shocks, right? So I didn't want to touch the suspension on my Tundra TRD Pro. So I got those numbers. So I basically said, I want the 295 70 R18. And I told this to Jeff, and I'm like, Jeff, what do you think is available? I also want white letters.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm a little bit old school.
Oh, and the white tire letters with the bright blue exterior looks really good.
So thank you for saying that. Are you just saying that, or?
No, I'm all about tire letters.
Okay.
I've got.
Anyways.
Yeah, my truck's got. I've got grabbers with red tire letters,
Oh, sweet.
and my Benza's got white walls. So I'm all about tire letters and white walls.
I like
That's it.
that Macklemore song, White Walls.
I can't say I know the one.
Cole, do you know that one?
Our producer Cole is laughing.
Cole-
Is it a good one, Cole? Sounds.
Hey, I like
maybe
Macklemore,
not.
okay?
Right on.
We should play that. We should when we leave this podcast.
That'll be the new podcast song, the new intro.
White Walls. We're always gonna. Oh, he said, "Yeah, I have some in stock."
Nice.
And I was like, "Wow!" So, because I was afraid this was gonna be like a very special size that doesn't exist anywhere in the world. He's like, "No, it totally exists. I have a few in stock. Do you want this or that?" He had a couple different brands, and when he said KO3, I was like, "You know what? I think we have to go KO3."
That's sweet. It always bums me out when I see someone's got white tire letters, but they're turned toward the inside. It's a point of preference.
It's a
but
miss.
I think
it's a miss if you turn them inside.
I think they look cool,
So
especially
anyways,
on a truck like that.
So yeah, so that's a passion. I did not make money doing this. I spent a lot of money. That was
As
$1,800.
most people do.
That was $1,800.
Yeah, I just got new wheels and tires. I bought method wheels for my truck and those general grabbers, and between the
That
wheels
was a
and the
pretty
tires,
penny.
yeah,
That was a pretty penny.
I spent $3-something thousand.
So yeah, we're not gaining money here.
Nope.
By any
We're
stretch.
spending it just like everyone else.
So, but it's fun, and also, by the way, and I haven't taken this off road yet with these new tires, but on the highway, the ride is so much better. There's more sidewall, but also these tires are new and not warped like
Yeah.
my old tires were. So the ride is beautiful. I'm so happy. The truck looks better. It's also a little bit wider. The tires are not sticking out past the body,
Nice.
which is actually illegal. And also, I don't like that. But
Yeah.
it's also a little bit wider, so it fills out the wheel well, which is amazing.
Yeah, it looks really good. I'm excited to see it in person. You had to grab one of the company trucks and bring it into work today, so I haven't gotten to see it yet in person. But by the time this podcast airs, I will have, if that matters.
So anyways, also speaking of the truck I did grab, which is our long-term Chevy Duramax 2500 Trail Boss truck, which was, we had it in service for a couple reasons. First of all, an oil change.
Yep.
We did an 8,000 mile oil change. This was, it was our first oil change because I know you're a little bit against that. You would recommend doing it a little bit sooner.
It just if I'm spending $60,000+ on a vehicle, I'd like to do the first oil change definitely before closing in on 10,000. Even though the manufacturers recommend exactly what we did with that truck.
Yeah.
It's nothing outside of the maintenance schedule that they tell you to do. So I'm sure it's fine. I totally believe that. It's just it seems a
doesn't-
little strange.
Yeah,
But
it doesn't-
we've had oil analysis done when we've done exactly that same thing in the past, and it's fine.
Yeah, so we actually pay. We're not sponsored by Blackstone Labs, which is
No.
an oil testing service. We always
Who are we sponsored by? Because we're not sponsored by a lot of people.
we're sponsored by our listeners.
Yeah.
So
Thank you, guys.
you guys, for listening and watching, you support us. But if you wanted to throw a few dollars towards the company, we're not going to benefit from that, you and I, but the company will.
Sure, yeah.
But if you want to throw a couple dollars, patreon.com/TFLcar is where you can talk to us, donate a little bit of money.
That was a nice plug.
Yeah,
was well done.
We're sponsored by the community at Patreon.
Yeah, pretty much. And people just clicking on
But
our
you're
videos.
also on Carish podcast, which is everybody should always check out. And
it's a fun one.
It's a very fun podcast which is car and truck adjacent.
Yeah.
But you're sponsored by our good friend Scott O'Sullivan.
Yeah, so we
Right?
do. Yeah, we've got some sponsors on some areas, but what? Not this podcast. What are we doing, Andre? Does this podcast not have a sponsor? Who wants to sponsor us?
Okay, here's a call out to
Anyway.
you. If you're a company, let's say Michelin, if you're a company, let's say,
Or a company, I don't know, maybe a company that makes something I want.
but
Talkies.
we're not sponsored by manufacturers of vehicles. That's
No.
really important because
Yeah.
if we were brought to you by Toyota or Ford, then we wouldn't be able to review other trucks or cars.
If we could be sponsored by like a good chicken restaurant or something,
Oh,
that'd be pretty sweet.
wait a minute. Raising Cane's, for example.
Yeah, that would be something.
Because we could have Raising Cane's like glasses, cups. We could be eating while talking.
We could so easily do all that.
Yeah, we could.
That's all on the table.
We can enjoy that.
How did we get to this? What were we talking about?
We were talking about our Duramax and
yeah.
oil.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, oil.
So
Yeah.
anyway.
Getting back to oil. So we've done oil analysis on basically every truck we've owned long term.
Yeah.
And when it comes back, it usually says it has slightly elevated elements of like some adhesives like silicones, which are used in construction of the engine. So like head gasket, sealants, or something like that. And it always says it's normal. And then that goes away with the next oil change and the next oil change and the next oil change.
Yeah, and if I remember right, they even test like the flash point and the lubricity of the oil.
Oh, they
and,
test like
and
20 different elements.
all kind of
oil.
stuff. And
All
when
of
we've
them pass.
even when we've waited until what the manufacturer recommends, we try not to go beyond that, of course. But even when we've waited close to 10,000 miles to do the break-in oil, everything comes back within margins that
Within those parameters.
that they're happy to see. So
And it's usually because
I guess it works, but
I guess it's usually because a lot of these oils are synthetic oils.
Yeah.
They have very specially formulated additives, and very they're good oils. I mean, oil technology has improved.
it's gone a long way.
A tremendous amount. So we did that. We took the truck in because it wasn't any of us in this room, but somebody broke a side mirror on our Duramax.
Yeah.
I'm not going to mention who. And we had to replace that. We had to fix that because we can't really continue to drive with a broken mirror.
Yeah, well, it also made it hard to see because it broke half of the convex mirror that you use, especially
see-
we use a lot when we're towing.
Yeah, exactly.
So it made it difficult to
So
drive.
anyway, so we
and that
fixed
was
that.
expensive.
It was expensive.
It was
I wanna
pricey.
do
The
a
mirror, we could do
I want to do a
separate.
separate video about this, but the mirror cost, and we had to replace the housing. 'Cause
Yeah,
it was cracked.
it pretty much it pretty much broke the whole thing. It wasn't like it just broke the glass or one piece of plastic.
And I guess this is what's related to the high cost of trucks.
Yeah.
Is because this is a power folding mirror with a power adjustable top, but the convex part is manual.
Yeah, but it's got like LED lights in it and a couple different things.
And
Is it heated?
I think it is heated.
I wouldn't be
LED
surprised
lights.
if it is, yeah.
That mirror cost us $838.
Not including the install, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Install was $300. So I think almost 2 hours of labor,
Yeah.
professional labor.
So including the dollars and cents, it's almost $1,200 because it was like
To replace-
$340
yes.
to install it, and maybe a
And
little over $800.
$840 for the
Yeah, so it was,
mirror
it was
itself.
about $1,200 to replace that mirror,
One mirror.
which is pretty intense.
So this is where the price of trucks and owning
Yeah.
a truck
'Cause I can-
goes. I don't want to do
I bought the mirrors for my truck, and I can tell you beyond a shadow of a doubt they are not
$800
$800
mirrors.
bucks.
Okay. So anyways, so that's kind of where that's coming from.
Yeah.
Also, we installed yet another tonneau cover. We needed help because it's actually a powered one that's retractable, and we wanted to try that out. So that's a Chevy performance part.
Yeah.
Also, we had a leak.
Yeah, the truck was dripping just a little bit of coolant. It would be maybe a quarter size bit of coolant after sitting overnight. So not a ton, but still not something that you want to see on a brand new
the
truck. So we had it
dealer
fixed.
looked into it. They also repaired it. So I kind of want to do a special report about that as a separate story.
For sure.
So anyways, so that's coming up. And that's why we own trucks, because we want to discover, see, any issues, what's
Yeah.
going on with them. Are they durable, reliable, that type of stuff. So that's coming up.
We've also got some news with another one of our trucks. Slightly sad news.
Very sad because you and I and Roman, and I think maybe Nathan was involved, we voted the Ford Ranger and the Ranger Raptor truck of the year last year.
Yeah, absolutely. We have loved that truck. It is properly quick. Over
Quick.
536 pound-feet of torque with the tune that we've got on it, right?
Amazing. Amazingly fun to
55 horsepower.
Really fun to drive. Great off-road vehicle with dual
Yeah.
lockers.
Front and rear lockers, KO3s, so good tires.
Yes.
So it's a good rock crawler. Not the best rock crawler, but it's a good rock crawler. And great at high-speed off-roading.
And we've owned it for 14 months.
Yeah, we've had it.
And
That for us is quite a while.
Which is quite a lot for us, and it's going away.
It is.
But it's also being replaced by something.
It's making way for another truck, which is cool. So we're keeping trucks around.
Yeah.
This is going
Roman.
to be...
By the way, this is Roman's doing. I mean, he's the owner of the business, and so, and I knew it's time for the Ranger Raptor to go.
Yeah, it's been in discussion. I was just trying not to believe that it was true because I like that truck.
It's true.
It is
So
true.
stay tuned. Please check out TFL Truck channel, and also TFLtruck.com. Just like in a day or so of this publishing,
Yeah.
you will know what's happening.
Exactly. So coming up very soon, a brand new truck for the company, which is going to be pretty cool. Something that we're excited
another
about.
long-term truck.
Yeah,
Which is
exactly.
awesome. And then also, I'm going to end on a sad note, unfortunately.
Another sad note, man.
Overland Expo West is this weekend
Yeah, in Flagstaff.
in Flagstaff, Arizona. And I've gone, I think, other than COVID, I think I've gone every year since 2014.
Wow.
And so
This is the first year you're
this
missing?
is the first time I'm not going to be there in some number of years. And I'm quite sad. We usually go if there's a new vehicle being unveiled. I'm not OEM vehicle.
Yeah, because
I'm
the
not talking
manufacturers
about-
have a big presence there.
So there's nothing being unveiled, as far as I know, from an OEM perspective there. So unfortunately, we couldn't quite justify going there this year.
Right.
Okay. So,
Yeah,
so
which
we'll
is too
have
bad
to-
because it is a lot of fun. Of course, there's still going to be Overland Expo Mountain West.
Which is in August, which is here in Colorado, which is our home show.
Yeah, right in our backyard. So
Yeah.
we're definitely going to make it to that. If any of you out there are going to be at that show, keep an eye out because
Exactly.
some of us will certainly be there. But
And if you're going to Expo West in Flagstaff, Arizona, let us know how it is.
yeah, because the Flagstaff show, we loved the Mountain West one,
the-
especially because it's in our neck of the woods. But West, the Flagstaff show is huge, and it's always a really
And
good
it's kind
time.
of the OG.
Yeah, it's
I mean,
very cool.
it's kind of the original show that was there longer than most.
Yeah, there's
basically.
a lot of eye candy, a lot of stuff that you want to buy. So it's a little dangerous.
And you know what my dream is? My dream is to have either a TFL off-road booth or have some of our vehicles actually shown at the show.
I love that. I'd love to get my my Land Rover that I put a Corvette motor into.
Yeah,
At
because
a
you have it
booth
lifted on some beefy tires as
Yep.
well. So that's one of my dreams. Maybe we can do it at Mountain West.
Yeah, that
One
would be
of these
sweet.
years.
We'll have to talk to Roman. Roman doesn't usually like,
Oh no, he
Doing
would
that
never
kind of
go for
stuff.
that. He would never.
but maybe we can do it. You know,
But you know what?
in
we
our
could,
own time.
But what we could do, because we have a lot of industry friends.
Yeah.
None of them sponsor us. But
If that wasn't
they
abundantly
did,
clear.
if they did, we could use their booth space
Right.
to showcase some of our stuff.
I could think of plenty of people I'd like to reach out to. Yeah.
By the way, Rider Justice.
They have a booth
Yeah.
there.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know if they do west,
But they're focused on.
but they do mountain west for sure.
But they're focused on motorcycles. Rider Justice.
Yeah, but Scott and the team over at Rider Justice, they do motorcycles. They also do cars. So they do both.
And trucks.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. On that note, on very sad notes, we should end this show.
It's not all sad.
No, it's not all
There
sad.
are some good things.
When-
Did you ever talk about what happened to your van?
No.
That's another sad note.
Well, I did publish a video about this, about a week ago?
Oh, okay.
David and I and Mr. Truck, we all got together.
This
and
van.
we
The real one.
the
of this.
the
we
Buhanka
got a
van.
toy version
So
of it, too.
the Soviet 4x4 van, which I would love to have at the expo, at the Overland Expo. We put brand new tires, which is actually Firestones, which is actually a partner of ours.
Yeah.
So actually,
Finally, someone who does help us out.
yeah, somebody helps us. It's Firestone.
Although, not a sponsor because they just sent you tires.
No,
right?
they sent
Yeah.
us tires.
Well, which
but
is
that's
still
a
awesome.
sizable. That's a sizable
That's a
investment.
super helpful contribution. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So look at this. We're swapping tires on it. We're so happy. We're jumping into the van.
Short lived.
And you know what I say to David? I was like, David, you did the most work on this. You should give it a whirl. You should drive this.
You got in it and you said, you know what, David? This is never going to break.
Yes. And we drove it. Everything was nice. Everything is beautiful. We're driving it. And then we're finally getting on pavement. Almost for the first time, because a lot of our driving has been on dirt roads around
look, it's
David's.
Kent.
Yeah,
Mr.
Mr.
Truck.
Truck. Mr. Truck is in there also.
Nice. David and Mr. Truck and
Yes.
Andre, it's the dream team.
And do you see the expression on David's face? We lost third and fourth gears. Burned
Yeah.
up the transmission.
I mean, that's the tough thing, and I've had a similar experience with the Corvette motor going into my Land Rover. Automatic transmissions are tough, man. They're complicated, they're delicate a lot of the time, and it's. I props to anyone who does an engine swap and a transmission swap on something, and
It sounds
Puts-
easy, but it's not.
well, props to anyone who gets an automatic transmission into a swapped vehicle and never pulls it out again, because I think that's hard to do. The automatics are just finicky.
Yeah, and also this automatic is a 700R4 GM transmission from 30 years ago?
Yeah.
It was rebuilt by a builder in Denver. We put it into this van, but it's not computer controlled because I did not want a computer controlled transmission, which is what this is. This is basically a mechanical transmission. But even being mechanical, it still has valves. It has different,
They're
complications.
still complicated.
They're still
Manuals
very
are
complicated.
so much simpler.
But because this is a forward control van, we couldn't create a linkage for a manual transmission because it's sitting way behind you. The transmission is
Yeah,
it's
or at least
behind
it
the
would
driver.
have it would have presented a very different challenge. And
Yeah.
ultimately,
In this particular build.
anything is possible. But
In this particular build. If this was
It
a
just
normal
made-
build, if we're
Yeah.
building another Ram truck, it would have been a lot simpler.
yeah,
But this
So-
was a very unique build.
Yeah, for you Buhanka, it just made sense to do an automatic. Same thing for my Land Rover. I want it to be a vehicle that my partner can also drive. My truck is stick, and I wanted to have a 4x4 that wasn't, so I can have both.
Okay.
And that's why I did automatic on mine. And
But we're
I
both
don't-
having problems.
I don't
with it.
necessarily regret it. Yeah, so mine is computer controlled. I've got a 6L80, which I'm excited about because the 6-speed is
Very
nice,
beefy.
especially up here in the mountains. 6-speed makes a huge difference, having those extra ratios to be able to choose from.
And also, it has good reputation, that transmission, right?
It depends on who you ask. So the one that I've got's got a lot of billet parts in it. It's a pretty beefed up transmission, which is cool. But the electronic side of things, the software side of things is pretty picky, pretty finicky. So a buddy of ours, Jordan Townsend, who has a shop down in Colorado Springs, he's helping me out with the programming side of things, which is way over my head. So physically, I got the transmission in there.
But
and
look at
he's
that
working on the
sexy
programming.
loaf of bread.
It looks
Do you see
great
that?
with the destinations, the Firestones. Yeah. Yet another vehicle of yours that's got the white tire letters.
Yes,
That's
I'm
pretty
all
sweet.
about white letters, white walls. Can we get sponsored by Macklemore? Is that possible, Cole? I'm
Probably
looking
not.
at our producer. And
Get
look
on
at
that.
Oh, and David is building a truck too. So next episode, maybe we can talk about his truck.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff going on. You should have David on the podcast.
Oh, yes.
That would be cool. You and David do podcasts?
Cole, can we take this show on the road?
Yeah. Record it up at his ranch.
Yes.
That'd be sweet.
We'll just need to move this desk.
Yeah.
And
you could have the sound of yaks in the background. It'd be very peaceful.
Yes. All right, guys. Thanks for joining us for another episode of TFL Talking Trucks. And we'll talk trucks next week.
Absolutely.
As well. Thanks.